Hello everyone, this is chapter 6 part 5. Okay, in this part we'll actually continue talking about different types of elasticity. So in the last part we talked about inelastic demand, unitary elastic demand, and elastic demand. Right now we'll be talking about perfectly inelastic demand and perfect elastic demand, and plus we're actually going to wrap the types of elasticity topic up real quick. Okay, so the fourth kind of elasticity is perfectly inelastic demand. So we know what inelastic is. Actually, you change price, increase price, let's say by 1% point, quantity demanded will go down less than 1%, let's say 0.1. I just made up that number. As long as the decrease in quantity demanded is smaller than the initial increase in price, or obviously it doesn't have to be a price increase, it could be price decrease. In that case, quantity demanded would increase. This is an example of inelastic demand. We're going to another extreme, perfectly inelastic. Perfectly inelastic demand means quantity demanded does not respond at all to any price change. Interesting. Examples are things that even if the price changes, you want to consume certain amount regardless of what happens. So examples would be insulin. If you have diabetes, you have to, for certain types at least, you have to actually get insulin injections, and it doesn't matter how much they are. Either it's $1 per shot or $100 per shot. If you need it, you need it. Maybe never have it, but let's say you're diagnosed with cancer, and if you need a chemotherapy therapy, even if it's $100 per chemo or $5,000 per chemo, if you need it, you need it. Another example is a very sad example. I don't like giving actually, but it's in the book. So drug addicts. If you're addicted to something, by definition, that means you have to have, right? So basically, in all these cases, price doesn't matter much, right? So this is how the demand curve looks like if you have perfectly inelastic demand. Demand curve is perfectly vertical. What does that mean? That means this. Even if price is at P1, at low price, go hit the demand curve, quantity demanded is here, or price is a higher price, again quantity demanded, again same. If the price is absurdly high, go hit demand curve, quantity demanded. So regardless of the price, quantity demanded does not respond at all to any price change. When we calculate price elasticity of demand, perfectly inelastic demand has zero price elasticity of demand. That means if you change the price, quantity demanded changes not at all. Okay, so here's the link. I'll be posting this PowerPoint slide, so you can actually click on this, dirkmatter.com. This is about Born Identity movie, where he actually offers the girl to give him a ride between two cities, and he increases the price because he's like, I need to get this right. Just watch it. Okay, perfectly elastic demand. We're going to another extreme. Perfectly elastic demand means small change in price will drop quantity demanded to zero. It looks like this. Demand curve looks exactly like this. Very strange. Look at this demand curve. Demand curve is perfectly horizontal. Okay, you will see perfectly elastic demand curve like this. Horizontal demand curve for agricultural products, for instance wheat. Okay, so let's say price of wheat is, wholesale person comes to your farm, you're a farmer, he says, you know what, I'll buy your wheat at $10 per bushel. Okay, and that's it. In quantities, number of bushels of wheat. So what happens is that it's a take it or leave it offer. He comes to your farm, he's like, I'll give you $10 for a bushel of wheat. And if you say, you know what, no, I want 11, he's like, well, goodbye, I'm gonna go to another farm. There's so many farmers around here producing wheat. So this is what it means to have perfect elastic demand. You can sell as much as you want, or in this case it's demand. So you can quant demand it. You can sell as much as you want at $10, but if price changes a little bit, your quant demand goes down to 0. Perfect elastic demand has negative infinity slope, so price changes just a little bit, quant demand drops down to 0. That's why it's negative infinity. Okay, here's the rule of thumb. Perfectly elastic. Why am I sticking the tongue of letter E out? Because it's gonna come handy. It's rule of thumb. Perfectly inelastic. Why are we making this I very long? Because that's how the demand curve looks like, okay? Perfectly elastic demand curve. D1 would be an example of a perfectly elastic demand curve. It's perfectly horizontal. D2 is an example of a perfectly inelastic vertical. It's a way to remember. So let's see. Here's a demand curve. This is relatively speaking, relative to this demand curve. It's steeper than this one. Therefore, it's relatively inelastic. This is relatively elastic. So I'm going to call D1 is relatively inelastic. D2 is relatively elastic, flatter. Steeper demand curves, here's rule 1. Steeper demand curves are relatively inelastic than the flatter ones. Rule number 2. Elasticity actually changes along a straight line too. This is so insane. So if you look at a demand curve, okay, demand tends to be relatively more elastic here at higher prices, and it tends to be relatively inelastic at lower prices. So at higher prices, to the left of the demand curve right here, demand curve becomes more elastic, and here it's relatively more inelastic.